Welcome back to the Always Aggressive podcast. I'm Corey Palm with Tanner Lipset and head coach Tony Ersland. Guys, you're back where we're used to seeing you this week, not in any sports book or, Grand Vista looking hotel suite. Welcome back from Vegas. I hear the travel wasn't necessarily bump free, but we may or may not get to that down the line. Coach, the results on the mat. I know with the tournament that is this early in the season and stacked like that one was, maybe an outsider's evaluation isn't quite the same as your evaluation of how the team performed. So I'll ask you, how did the team perform?
Yeah. It's tough because overall, and not overall, like it's not overall disappointment, right? Just you want better results for sure. Like we wanted better results. We expected better results than we got. But you do got to take emotion out of it, right? I mean, disappointment is there for us. We expected to have a champ. We had a guy seeded number one. We didn't get it done. So there's expectations. And so there is disappointment with that on an emotional level. Okay. If you take emotion out of it and you start to evaluate some things, there was some good wins, and we can talk about some of those things. Some guys did some nice things. A guy like Stony Buell, I'll tell you, a guy like that had a top 10 win and was right there with another guy, I think he lost to like maybe number 2 overall and number 8 overall in a tight match. 4 and 8, very tight. Right. And, but he was right there and had a win over a top 10 kid. So when you start evaluating big picture and looking, like some of those losses were to some very tough people. We wrestled a lot of guys. Draws were very tough. We lost to a lot of guys ranked top 4, top 4 or 5. And so now it just is like, okay, it frames the picture in a little better, a little better view for me, I guess. It's still disappointment. We expect to win. And like I said, there are expectations, but okay, let's clean this up. Where are we weak? Where do we need to be better? Because that was like a preview to the national championships. So there was good things, good ranked wins that will help the guys down the road. But still, man, I'm not, just didn't get what we want. So we gotta, the only thing you can do is wake up and get better, and that's where we're at.
To offer some perspective to people, this was being regarded as the toughest field at that tournament in a long time. Had a bunch of new faces there, some teams that don't normally go. Oklahoma State was there for the first time that I can remember, amongst several other teams. And to say that there was carnage across the board, Coach, would that may even be an understatement. Like, it was nuts to see how many upsets happened out there.
Yeah, there was All-Americans not placing in that tournament. I mean, that was more than one. I think it was like 3 or 4. I think it might have been Flo had done a list of All-Americans who were there and didn't place. And again, to clarify or put perspective on this too, you think about Parker Filius, who finished very strong last year. His 7th and 8th place match there last year was against D'Amelio from Ohio State. And then lo and behold, look, there's D'Amelio in our All-American match at NCAA's in March. So it's an excellent preview, of things to come. So again, you can't just from an emotional level make a gut reaction in those things. Like, you got to look through it and you got to kind of absorb it and figure out, hey, this is where we need to be better and where we were short. Because again, there was some really tough draws, and that's not to make excuses. It's what it is. It condenses the bracket, makes it tough to get through that field with all those landmines.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not happy. We didn't get what we wanted. But you know what? I'm probably not happy if we don't have 10 guys in the finals, right? Somebody didn't do something that we wanted them to do. And so, again, we'll go back to work, and there was enough good things. There was some very good wins by kids that will definitely help us down the road. And even the losses, I'll tell you, the losses, it's tough to beat some of our really good competitors twice. So they'll be better from this. They'll adjust. They'll make changes where maybe they were a little short, whether it was on top or bottom or a setup, and they'll come back strong. So overall, it's what it is, but we'll be better from it. I always firmly believe that. I firmly believe you have to be pushed and compete against the best people and push to develop. And so our guys were, for sure.
Let's dig into some of that good, Tony. Let's start with, we can start with Ramos. Ramos, like you said, was the number 1 seed. Wrestled a pretty good tournament, had one loss that, Nico Provo from Stanford wrestled a great tournament, ended up winning the whole thing. He had a razor thin match with Maddie at Nationals last year, and we came up on the wrong end of that one. But I think it would be, negligent to, like you said, it was a rough tournament. So Matt still managed to pick up a few ranked wins on his way to his 7th place finish.
No doubt. And Matt's a great competitor, and he's a guy, like I said, he'll be better because of this. We watched film yesterday on a bunch of his matches, and I know, he's got pride, and he knows he can win. And so that's a tough one to kind of rewatch some of that stuff, but I know we're going to get a strong response from him. And he sees now too how people are approaching him, right? People wrestle him a little different. And so as they've adjusted to the problems he presents, he's got to continue to kind of adjust as well. That doesn't mean make wholesale changes on who you are. Yeah. Who he is pretty dang good. But he's got to adjust, right? There's got to be some things that he has to adjust to as well. And so that's the game where we're at, is how are people approaching him, and how can he solve those approaches? So again, he's a tough guy to beat twice. I know he'll make adjustments and he'll improve. And as you said, he had a lot of good wins still coming from this tournament, because that's how deep it was. When you talk about margin of error on these losses, I mean, he actually had a match, without going into it, because I'll get too salty with it, but he lost a match where we thought he had won on riding time in second OT by 2 seconds. And they went back and had video review, and now we didn't win it. And then we've got to go again. And he comes up short on the next ride out. So we're talking about 1 or 2 seconds in terms of margin of error. So again, we're not far off from winning the whole thing, or even being third too, when you talk about coming back through. So still very confident, and he's got to make some adjustments based on other people's approaches.
Absolutely. Corey, I think, you look at what Ramos has done so far. He is officially 10-3 on the year in regards to his NCAA qualification purposes. He's got some other matches that don't necessarily apply to his record form. His win out at All-Star, some of his action out at Clarion. But in 13 matches this year, he's faced 7 ranked opponents already.
That's amazing.
Yep. And that doesn't even speak to what he's got left the rest of the year. Just, from an outsider's perspective, Corey, you look at that and you got to figure it's going to pay dividends.
Yeah, he's, the experience can't but help him. He's already got, he's already very close to having the number of matches he needs to qualify at the end of the year. 13, we're in early December. Seeing a bunch of ranked kids. And one thing I love about, going out to Vegas is you look at the guys he wrestled, the schools he wrestled, App State, Cal Poly, Stanford, Harvard, South Dakota State, Nebraska. So, there's only one of those schools we're going to see throughout the course of the year, usually, if you don't go seek them out. So to be able to get that wide range of experiences, to be able to get that, put it in his mental Rolodex, so to speak, he's going to be able to draw on this stuff down the line, and it can't do anything but help him. I think I liked your coach, your point about people are wrestling him differently now because they kind of, they've got a much better scout on Matt Ramos. Well, point, counterpoint, counterpoint, counterpoint. That's the game. That's the way it works from match to match and from second to second out there. So that is the chess match that y'all are in. It's really going to be fun to watch it play out over the course of the next 4 months.
Now I got a fun note here, Tony. Before you go there, we look at there's rankings, right? There's rankings on rankings on rankings on rankings, and they've moved Matt around based on this, that, and the third. But I thought one one thing to point out, I was doing a little surfing yesterday, and our friends over at WrestleStat.com, that they do their rankings purely by the computers. They don't plug any, there's no personal opinion factored into their stuff. And even at 10-3 after Vegas and finishing 7th, WrestleStat still has Matt Ramos ranked number 1 at 125 pounds. So it seems the computers are recognizing the difficulty of what he's doing so far.
There's no doubt. I mean, and that's part of what I believe, right? I mean, part of what I believe is in preparation is that you have to be pushed, right? Like, you got to get out of your comfort zone to grow and to develop, right? If everything's easy all the time, you're never going to excel, right? We've got to get, and I believe this about all people, you just got to be pushed out of your comfort zones to grow and to develop. And that's where Matt's at. And as long as you keep your head on straight and you understand where you're going, then those lessons are, they pay you back. And that's what I would want any team to know, because in general, we don't dodge people. We show up and we wrestle. And so even guys, James Rowley has seen a very good schedule as well with a number of ranked opponents. Those things pay you back. And then so keep your confidence, keep your belief, just keep looking where you're going and understand that ultimately, this will serve you well in the best moments.
Moving up the lineup, Dustin Norris went 2-2 out there, ended up with a nice ranked win in his, on the backside over a tough opponent. Nice boost for Norm out in Vegas.
Yeah, good win, as you said. Like, didn't get on the podium, which is always the goal. But when you come out and you have a win like that, again, North Carolina, I don't believe they're on our schedule again. We're not going to see him. So to have he was a top 25 opponent. That's a win that will get you to nationals or help you get to nationals. That can be a good quality win. So that's why you go to these places. And then again, it was nice to see Norm respond. That was a tough match. I mean, he had to ride very tough at the end. He had to get a late takedown and then ride out to win. So I was proud of the way he competed to close that match out and secure the win.
James Rowley, you mentioned, another guy who had a nice ranked win, a top 25 win out there. He's had some struggles early. He's wrestled a brutal schedule on paper, but definitely a springboard for going into the holiday break and some more duels.
Yeah, he had a solid tournament. Again, I say solid just because we didn't get where we wanted on the podium. But when you look again, he's a guy. He's wrestled everybody. He had the 4 ranked guy, Foca early. That was a 4-3 match. We were right there. We got to learn to get out. He gets out, man. I like where we're at in the match to win. We needed to get out to keep that match going. So he's right there with a quality opponent who, we're going to see again in a big moment, right? I mean, that's a guy you're going to see to do something, to be an All-American or, whatever, make a final. That's a guy you're going to see potentially. So to be right there and to understand, hey, that was the bottom that hurt him. That's things that we can go about working on. And that's what we're doing. We're already working on bottom strategies for him where he fell a little short. You mentioned, though, the positive, too. He came back through the bracket, had a couple of wins, beat the Campbell kid, who we will see again, but is a top 25 kid as well and has some very good wins and won that very convincingly. I think it was 12-3 might have been the score. So, and that's what James is capable of. He's capable of getting points, both from feet and top. And so I want to, see him continue to open up and keep that aggressive style where it's not always a 1-score differential. That was kind of what was biting him in the butt early on, as we'd score early and then maybe we're holding on too much instead of building our lead and continuing to be aggressive. So that was a match he can definitely, against a quality opponent where he can say, hey, yeah, I was dominant. I put points on the board and it paid me back big time. So again, lots of good things for him to pull from that tournament.
Stony Buell, another guy, you mentioned Stony, made it to the blood round at 165 pounds. looked as good as we've ever seen him. I mean, he was not only was he winning, but he was winning in dominant fashion. Can't help but be really excited about what Stoney did out there.
Yeah, a couple of major decisions for his wins as well, and one of those was an opponent. You know, the Nebraska kid who almost made a world team. You know, very quality kid, a guy we'll see again. You know, he looked like you said, man. It's the Stoney that we know he possesses. You know, it was free flowing, aggressive. You know, attack. You know, riding tough. Like there was just so much good, and he seems to really have an understanding of his game plan now. You know, when you're young, and he's a sophomore now. Last year, I would say he didn't understand what his game plan was, what his identity to win as much was, and he has a really good understanding of that now. So I'm very excited with Stoney that he's starting to put things together, and you see it paying back. And again, another loss to a quality opponent. This was the Oregon State kid who I think is, you say, ranked 8th in the country.
I believe so.
Man, like, you know, had the first takedown, was riding. I mean, he was in control of the match early, and then he saw how fast things can switch. Where he got a little lazy with his left hand, gave up a takedown, and that switched the momentum of the match. And so even in a loss there, I know Stoney has belief if he sees that kid again, what he needs to do. But he also was shown how fast things can change when you're not paying attention to your position. You know, like a simple thing like your left hand in contact, what needs to happen. You know, I think valuable lesson learned, but still a lot of belief gained. And that's what you want from your kids. If you're not going to show up and get on top of the podium, which you do, you train to win, you know, there's no doubt. But hey, lessons learned better be along with that. And I thought Stoney learned a lot of positive lessons and was able to build a lot of belief.
I think one thing that is very easy to lose track of when you look at the tournament and you look at how guys finish and so on and so forth, we took a lot of youth out there.
Yeah.
Like a lot. You know, we had
don't say.
We had freshmen at 141, 157, 174, and 184, and sophomores at 33, 65, 97, and heavyweight.
Yeah.
Like I said, easy to just look at the results and not think about the fact that this is the first big tournament for some of these young kids.
Yeah, it's deep end of the pool. You know what I mean? You know, it's deep end of the pool. But that's good. And when you mention young guys too, I do want to say this, like, you know, Cole Salome, man, on short notice, you know, Wednesday morning we're practicing and we were still anticipating taking Grayson, and Grayson was sick, couldn't make the trip. And so, you know, Cole on very short notice had to fill in and go out and, you know, had a good dominant win, you know, over a Sacred Heart kid, right? Like to be a true freshman and, you know, told the day of, hey, pack your bags, you're going, when you were not anticipating that. Matter of fact, he was talking to me about going to a wedding on Saturday. You know, he had a wedding in the state to go to. And so we were talking about practice plans with that and making the wedding work too. So, you know, things like that come up. He's asked to help on short notice. You know, went 1 and 2 on the day, but you know what? Valuable for that guy. He competed hard. He got an opportunity to really get going and score some points and get a major decision for him too. So again, those are the situations that when you're called upon, you want to be able to make the most of the opportunity. And Cole was ready. And I no doubt for a true freshman, he's going to get better because of it. He was kind of shown what some of this high-level competition looks like and what he needs to do. And I know he's excited from that. So, again, when we talk about our youth, excited for that kid. You know, he's going to be better. He's taking it the right way. And I think it's going to push him where he needs to go. When you talk about other guys, you know, a guy like Joey, you know, Joey, we talk about tough draws, and this is not an excuse because Joey be the first one to tell you he should have won those matches as well. You know, his losses were to guys, I think all like 10th and 13th or 10th and 12th, somewhere in there.
Yep.
These are the kind of blood round guys you'll see, you know what I mean? And so while he got on the short end of the stick, both in OT and at the very end of a match, I mean, Joey's just too good of a competitor not to, again, make adjustments to what he needs to do. He knows he needs to be more aggressive. He needs to be more physical in the hand fight and carry a little more pace. I think he was just a little too hesitant with his wrestling. And so, again, this one's burning him pretty hard. It's burning us all pretty hard. But, again, he's just too good of a competitor to not take this in the right way and use this fuel for, hey, here's who I need to be to win these tough matches, because there was tough matches everywhere. So, again, things that burn you, but if you take emotion out of it, it shows you where you need to go.
I think, since you bring up Joey, I think one thing that maybe the fans or maybe, our listeners, something to keep in mind. And I talked a little bit about this with Sule after the tournament. Tournament wrestling is crazy to me. And I'd love to hear both of your takes kind of on this. You look at a kid like Joey. Joey goes 1-2 in the tournament, right? And his losses are to number 13 in the country, number 10 in the country. You got another kid at the same weight who ends up on the podium and didn't face a ranked opponent until he got into the placing rounds. Like his trip through the bracket was completely different. There's a kid at another weight who made the finals without wrestling a ranked wrestler.
And that one blew my mind. You told me that statistic. It might have been yesterday. I didn't even realize it. It wasn't one of our guys, clearly. No. But that blew my mind with the depth of that tournament, because there was ranked opponents everywhere in those brackets. For a kid not to see a ranked opponent, man, that's like, you must be living right there, buddy. Like, somebody was watching over you.
That's some Vegas luck, right?
Yeah, with the depth of that field, you're right. So, yeah, it's interesting. But, again, that's tournament wrestling. You can't look ahead in the bracket and say, hey, I'm going to see this guy, right? About the time you do that, somebody completely different, and now you got to switch mindset. So, that old adage about just, hey, whoever's in front of you, you can't control it, just be ready. And that's truly what tournament wrestling is. And that's where you've got to kind of live, because there were upsets again everywhere in that tournament, and a number of really good kids not placing just from a ranking standpoint. And I know the ranking shakeup from that tournament was significant, even though it is early. It's early December. So much more is going to happen. But if you use it right, it'll pay you back.
Corey, you're a fan of lots of sports and lots of tournament type sports. As the volleyball team's in their tournament now. We've seen some of the things that have happened with men's and women's basketball in their tournament, and they mirror this a little bit. I mean, from your standpoint, you hear facts like that, you hear things like that. How does it make you, pause and look at the whole thing?
It makes me angry, because it's so much about
rage.
It's not always about luck, of course. You put yourself in a good position, and you, like you said, Tony, you wrestle the guy in front of you. You play against whoever's across the net or across the floor, but it's also just completely random sometimes. And where it really makes me mad is when entire seasons, entire careers come down to a fluke moment that may or may not be in your control. A slow hand on the clock, a review that maybe an official looked at and there wasn't conclusive evidence, those magic words. Like, for an entire season to be defined by one result sucks. That sucks. And I hate it when sports get reduced down to that, because it's the journey that matters. And, it's the whole season it completely that matters. It's not, how you did for this 7 minutes, this one time on a Friday evening in March. But so often it comes down to that, or, maybe not 7 minutes, maybe 7 seconds, maybe 1 second. If you got out 1 second sooner, and your whole season's a failure. Well, no, it's not that simple, but we make it that simple because we're kind of simple-minded human beings.
Yeah,
we for yourself.
Well, the royal we, right?
So, and it brings up something really interesting, right? I mean, it's truly, right, it's the journey, it's the process. That's what it's supposed to be out, right? I always tell the kids, and here we are, and it's crazy because I always feel like it's a contradiction to some extent, but truly, you can't just be event driven, right? Like
Right.
event driven, that's the fixed mindset. Win, good, lose, bad. I don't believe that. But you're right. Like wins and losses do matter, and they can set the table for things down the road. Okay. But, go ask Florida State football about their journey, you know what I mean? And where they're at now. I mean, you want it to be about the journey, and it can't just be an event. But look, they did everything they could, and they're still left out.
Yeah.
It still wasn't good enough out of things not in their control. So I guess at the end of the day, man, I mean, you got to just, and this is old adage, I know people may not even want to hear, but all you can do is control what you can control. Show up the next day, get ready to train, take care of your weight, take care of your mindset, get better at the technical areas you need to, and you got to let the rest of it go because it's maddening, right? Like we can go down a rabbit hole, like you're saying, Corey, and this is why I'm telling people you got to take emotion out of this. Because, man, I'll go down I was in a rabbit hole. I'll go down a rabbit hole and throw every possible result out and why we were short and where we were, you know what I mean, and work myself up. And at the end of the day, man, like you got to make good decisions, and good decisions don't just come from emotion all the time. So, hey, we got to go back and we got to figure it out and make good decisions. And that usually doesn't involve just reacting to emotion. So
being analytical and trying to take as much emotion out of it as you can, I think is such a good, it's the right answer. It's the right approach. Obviously, it's hard, but that's what makes good coaches good and not good coaches not so good. I think you have to do that. I think I would imagine, Tony, you've got a bunch of young guys, like Tanner said, 8 freshmen and sophomores competing out here. And one unifying trait of all of them is in their lives, they haven't lost much. Like we're talking 3 or 4 time state champions. We're talking world team members, world medalists. Like these are dudes who are used to winning almost all the time. And they're not winning right now because it's freaking hard. And they're wrestling people that are just as good as them, if not better, and managing their mental game. It has to take up a lot of your time, I would think.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? We got 10 teams, and actually you got over 30 because you got over 30 guys on the team. But if you're just talking about the lineup, right? You're sending 10 guys out. They're each their own team, and everybody can be in a different spot. I mean, like where Stoney is coming out of this tournament can be different than Joey, can be different than Mac, whoever. You just pick a guy, and so it is. It's time consuming. But that's what I love about coaching. It's not the same every day, man. I mean, it's different, and I'll tell you something, maybe this is people don't know, but we go into this, you look into like data science stuff now. I just spent an hour prior to walking up here with our strength coach and our athletic trainer. And you're looking at, things like heart rate and body temperature, HRV, heart rate variability, all of the sleep. And there's all these different things that you can take from it that go into where is a young person at? Are they trending up? Are they trending down? And some of that too is when you take the mentality of, did they have the tournament they wanted? Does that play a part in this, right? But that stuff is what I love. Like that I could talk about that with people here all day long because it's different and it's interesting and it's impactful when you talk about the development of young people and trying to take them where they want to go. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it's managing emotions and mindset. And it's also looking at physically, where are they, how are they doing, and how does that tie into results? So there's just a ton. I guess that's my only point is there's so much that goes into this with these young people. And it's not something just as simple as showing up and working on your high crotch every day. And that's why I get up. That gets my heart rate going because I love
headlocks, Tony. Headlocks.
Yeah, headlocks.
High
That's when we let
crotch.
Tanner come in. When we got to deal with headlocks, Tanner gets the coach. For everybody out there, if Tanner's got something to add, a dynamite drop in, he's going to say headlocks. We need more headlocks.
I just don't understand. You're talking about a move that scores 3 points versus like a move that could like finish the match. Like there's no argument here with me.
Yeah. You're not wrong, but then then we got to go into is this a high percentage hold or not? And if we miss it, where are we?
Yeah. You're not wrong, Tanner, but that doesn't make you right.
Whatever.
There's a lot of aspects to coaching that have changed. I actually just sitting here thinking I want that to be our topic next week, because I know you guys are not wrestling this weekend because guys are getting ready for finals. There are some competitions down the line, but next week I want to talk about how much the coaching world has changed for you in recent years. I know you guys are doing some fun, groundbreaking stuff, and we'll get into that. That's called the tease. We'll talk about that in depth next week.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there is a lot of really interesting stuff that can be gained that we didn't initially have access to, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, per se, when I was competing, and how you can use it now. And again, right, I mean, in this competitive world, I still look at adapt or die, right? Are you staying ahead and are you looking forward, or are you kind of just stuck in your ways? And I always believe there's you got to have a strong philosophy. You got to have a foundation for what you do and who you are, no doubt, 100%. But man, getting better at the margins is a way I've heard it explained. Like, the margins, what are other things and little ways you can do to be better? Those are some things, man, that we've really dove into the last few years that I think pay you back, and we're a part of Matt's success and Parker's last year even.
Yep. Well, guys, I think we put a nice bow on Cliff Keen. Looking ahead to the camel duels, the fighting camel duels. My bad, I don't want to get this.
Fighting camels.
You got some good challenges ahead down there late December 19th. We'll get into that preview a little bit next week as well. We won't delve too deeply here, but happy to hear about the results. Happy to hear everybody's back safely in West
everybody
Africa.
But my bag.
Everybody but Tanner's bag.
Everybody but my bag made it home safe.
Well, and Coach Pilara, don't leave him out. I know he's still looking for hit like it. That. As people know, man, I know you're trying to wrap this up, Corey, but that's travel, right, man? Like, it's just, I mean, we're losing bags, flights get delayed. Like, welcome to the world of travel to compete. A lot of stuff you got to deal with.
Yep. It's all variables. You can control what you can control, right? You're not going out there flinging bags, so
that's right.
Leave it up to somebody else. Well, guys, I hope the guys finish the semester strong, and we'll be back at it next week. Boiler up.